here. It's not saying recording in progress. Recording in progress. It says it's recording. I guess we're good to go.
Are you sure it didn't ask me?
Okay, maybe I'll do it again. Paul.
Huh, I heard recording stopped.
Weird. It didn't announce it.
No permission.
The Zoom lady's getting
Do you,
lazy, I guess.
do you want me to record on this computer just in case?
If you feel like it, go for it. I'll have to give you permission now.
Okay, I sent you a
Oh,
request.
yeah, there we go. Allow recording. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Earl, if you remember the beats on this one, I guess we'll just kind of jump on in.
Oh, I actually rewatched it and came up with all new, far sillier notes than I had before.
Okay, great.
All right.
Well, just as a
Yeah.
preview, Mark was emailing me or messaging me that this is his favorite so far, and I might agree. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean,
This
ooh.
one and Earthbound are really kind of neck and neck for me, but usually this one edges out ahead, and I'll kind of get into that later.
Well,
This is
I guess we want
juicy.
to talk about it. So, Mark, do your thing. After you
All right.
laughing.
Welcome to Podcast 1999, a podcast about Space 1999. I'm your host, Mark. This is Matt.
This is Matt, continuing
And
a
then-
series of frogcasts where my voice is rather ruptured.
You were higher before we started. Maybe
I
you're
was.
just
I
leaning
was.
into it now.
I was leaning into the Barry White a bit. Yes.
Oh, well, we also have just gonna do Batman. We also have our special guest Earl Green from Mission Log returning.
And I should mention Earl's recently been doing the Genealogy podcast, looking into Gene Roddenberry's 1950s television scripts, which basically serves as a graduate course on both TV history and Gene Roddenberry. So how's that been working out for you, Earl?
I've been loving it so far. I mean, everything's been a bit of a surprise to me. Some of the stuff that I had seen quite some time back, around the time I first was starting to pitch the show as an idea for a podcast. But then we got into the archives and I started seeing scripts that I'd only heard about before. And it's kind of amazing. It's a lot of fun. And we we hope to keep digging into the archives and kind of blowing everyone's minds with this stuff.
Because you guys are in Highway Patrol right now, which you can watch a few episodes of, but the older shows were kind of fun just because you have to paint the mental picture in your mind since there's no video around.
Right, and we always dramatize a little bit of a scene before we do the synopsis to kind of bring it to some kind of life, some small part of it.
But yeah. Anyway, I will give that my wholehearted recommendation. As it was a nice pivot during strike time, and it sounds like it's going to continue. So
Yeah, for sure. I learned things. I like most people, I just assume, for when I was younger, I just assumed that all these things come into the world fully formed, and Jim Henson didn't do anything before the Muppets, and Rod Serling didn't do anything before the Twilight Zone, but there's always stuff back there.
well, if you count Sam and Friends as the Muppets, he didn't really do much before the Muppets.
He did
For
the
Henson.
he did Sex and Violence, man.
Yeah. Oh no, Sam and Friends 1950s was his first Muppets. But
Jeez, that's a lot.
yeah, I know.
That's way back.
So many Muppets. It's great. Today,
even
though,
I don't know.
there are no Muppets in this, although one of our characters starts acting a little bit like a Muppet in the third act. It's the last sunset, in which the moon encounters gravity and atmosphere and mushrooms. Or something
Now
like
I'm
that.
picturing Animal going wild.
We stay. Ah!
What is it? You can't have sunshine without rain. You can't have mushrooms without rain moisture. You can't have a man going berserk and fighting the commander without mushrooms.
Right. Which, you think you need a keg of beer for that. It's like the stand-up comics where it's like, yeah, no one, people just fall on their butt when they get high. It's the drunks that get in the fights. But hey, this is alien substance, so who knows what it does.
Of course. This is probably made by not a single person who's ever done mushrooms. You just have to assume that in a lot of cases.
I wouldn't assume that.
The writers may not have.
Mark, you want to hit us up on some trivia for this?
Trivia. Can't have trivia without mushrooms. Charles Crichton is back to direct. You last saw his work in Guardian of Piri. He'll be back for 4 more episodes in season 1 and 6 in season 2. This one was written by Christopher Penfold along with the Andersons. The last we saw his work was Alpha Child, although he also wrote Guardian of Piri before that. Sorry, I'm trying not to be confusing. He's back for 5 more this season. This was one of the story ideas that was actually laid out during the pre-production of the series, and some of the scenes were filmed outside in the studio lot. This episode was designed to save money, but it actually ended up costing more than usual because it was harder to conceal the wire suspending the eagles against the blue sky, and there was no stock footage of eagles flying through a blue sky that they could use. Most of the other trivia on IMDb is about how scientifically inaccurate the episode is. It is the only episode of the series to only star the cast regulars and no one else, no guests. So, speaking of regulars, let's do a little spotlight on star of stage and screen Barbara Bain. If you're wondering why it took me so long to do this for our second build cast member, I've just barely finished trivia on time for the last 8 episodes. And also, I was stalling so it'd be less noticeable if there was overlap with Martin Landau's. Yes, I wrote all that out. Maybe let's just pretend that this bio is happening before another time, another place. Anyway, Barbara Bain was born Mildred Fogel, September 13th, 1931. That's not only September 13th, but it's 9131931. So September 13th, 1999 would be her 68th birthday. So close. Anyway, she was born in Chicago, graduating from the University of Illinois with a degree in sociology. She later moved to New York, where she studied as a dancer and a model, but then discovered her true love was acting when studying with Lee Strasberg at the Actors Studio, where she also met her future husband and co-star Martin Landau. They were married in 1957, almost a decade before Mission Impossible started airing. They had 2 children together and remained married until 1993, which was just 3 years before the first Tom Cruise Mission Impossible movie premiered. Bain has stated that she refuses to see any of those films because they are not like the series she starred in. Speaking of that series, Bain is best known for starring in it as the character Cinnamon Carter. She became the first actress ever to win 3 consecutive Emmys for Best Dramatic Actress, and she got a Golden Globe nomination along the way. She's currently the oldest living cast member of the original series and received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2016. She's worked with a number of charitable causes and is the founder of Screen Actors Guild's Book Pals program. I'm sorry, my brain fell apart. Screen Actors Guild Book Pals program, which has hundreds of actors reading to children in Los Angeles schools. Outside of that, you can see her in My Mother the Car, A Summer Without Boys, and Don't Go Near the Park. She still has several acting. I guess she still has several acting credits from recent years, so the Bain train shows no signs of slowing down.
How long did it take to think of Bain train?
I just it's a callback to 3 episodes ago.
Okay.
Because I said the McShane train had no. Now I've ruined it by explaining it.
Yeah, that's the best way to tell a joke, by explaining it. I sort of forced that on you, though. Okay.
It's the reference age.
I'll try and give a silky smooth synopsis then.
People just want quotables. Give them something to quote.
Like my entire synopsis I'm about to read?
Yep.
Okay. Moonbase Alpha is surveying a possibly habitable world that they've named Ariel, but an incoming satellite puts a kibosh on the mission. The Alphans don't know if it's friend or foe, and then the satellite begins gushing atmosphere and is joined by many more doing the same. And then they adjust gravity on the moon to Earth normal. Realizing the moon now has breathable air, the Alphans set about playing badminton and kindling romances. Hopefully the moon will be caught in the sun's orbit and they will have found their new home. Eagle 28 sets off on a reconnaissance mission, but ends up crashing in the lunar wilderness, with crew member Sandra possibly mortally injured. Moonbase Alpha's efforts to recover them are stymied by corrosion issues on the Eagles. Technicians figure out a way to modify the other Eagles to fly, But Victor Bergman chimes in with the bad news that the moon will not be achieving orbit around the sun. Things get tense in the crashed Eagle, and Paul sets out to find the moon base on foot. This fails miserably, but he does find a strange fruit that both fills him with energy and trips him out. He sets up a camp and tries to get his marooned crew members to join his crusade to restart humanity amongst the four of them. When they disagree, Paul gets violent. Fortunately, Commander Koenig and a working Eagle finds them just before the moon loses atmosphere. They have a fist fight and get back to the moon base. As they leave orbit, the aliens finally communicate, basically saying that humans suck too hard to live in their solar system. Well, at least the Alphans get one last sunset. So I gave you the titular line.
There you go. He said the line.
Said the line. I'm wondering if I will, of course, tell you what my favorite shot in this is, but would you like to tell me your favorite shot?
My favorite is absolutely when Alan just kicks the mushrooms after seeing Paul being insane.
Okay.
That's absolutely my favorite.
That's cool. Earl, did you have a favorite shot in this episode?
I've got to give the effects guys kudos for that last transition from sunset to the cold blackness of space over the model landscape. That is chef's kiss material, even by this show's standards.
You are correct, but I like the shot just before that where we see Paul back in main mission, just like, sorry guys. And everyone's kind of like giggling about it. It's like a freeze frame that's like, that's not a freeze frame.
And you get a sort of a little passing comment from Koenig, sort of just like, yeah, that's right. I beat you up. He didn't say exactly that, but it was almost that. Basically, he was it's
like they're hitting the reset button like in the goofiest way possible, but like not between episodes. You're seeing it right at the end of the episode. The reset button's been pressed just before.
But this is the thing. Part of I could go on for a while about why this is my favorite episode. Part of it is that basically it has a very like tangible climax, and it's basically these two immovable objects of Koenig at his most impatient and impetuous and angry, coming up against a man who has just eaten alien mushrooms and is in love. It is just insane. And punctuated by Helena blowing up an eagle with a bazooka.
Oh yeah, that was cool
did
too.
she blow up an eagle? I couldn't even tell what she blew up.
Yeah, she was blowing up the eagle because the eagle was buried under moon dust.
Because they were in a shack next to the eagle to try and survive. So,
Earl, how does this one sit with you? Of course, you chose this off the list, and rightly so. But what's the special sauce here?
I have so many. I kind of like the fact that there are no guest stars. The only outside force we really get is a voiceover as the last blue air bucket is leaving us. But this is down to them. And, while Koenig is protesting the alien planet's insistence that humans are just, not peaceful and not ready, and, they're just reducing property values throughout this entire solar system, wherever they go. They have just kind of proven that point themselves. And so, the crew is kind of their own worst enemy here. They can't get out of their own way.
Yeah, I did like the I guess the suspense is a little bit less on this episode because when the eagle crashes, it's like, well, I guess 70% of our main cast is now maroon, so obviously we've got to save them. And I mean, on a 70s TV show, whatever, that's par for the course. But I was just thinking takes a bit of the suspense out. I guess for a few moments I was wondering if Paul dies here, but I believe Paul dies between seasons instead.
He's written off. I don't know how. I'm not even really sure that they give him a death.
I know there's a novel or something that takes out Victor Bergman. I don't remember if Paul also gets that send off or not.
Well, we'll find out in a number of episodes.
Well, you might have to read the books too if you want that answer, but
we'll we'll tell you what we Google in between seasons. Or you can read the book. You do it.
I did find the satellite to be kind of amazingly droid-like for 1973 or so. Like it definitely had a kind of a proto R2D2 look.
It was cool. It looked cool. However, watching it, I was basically screaming at my television, why did this thing that attached itself, why did this thing that show up, you just took it into a room and have all the commanding staff in a room with it that's sealed and just, oh, let's see what we can do with it. It's just insane. It was one of the most insane things. It's up there with Prometheus. Like, hey, let's touch this little alien guy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my note here is the crew of the Nostromo was way more careful than this, and look what happened there.
Yeah, all my notes are just in all caps at this part. This is like basically good thing it isn't a bomb. This basically is the show turning into C-Lab 2021 for a minute.
We're cute Daleks. They're kind of like cute Daleks too, maybe.
Well, good thing for them it wasn't a bomb, or gassing them with ammonia or something.
To be fair, they do take it back out like relatively quickly.
It's like and this is the thing, regardless of how stupid it was, it looked really cool. The gassing sequence looked awesome, but it was also just destroying stuff. The pressure was blowing doors off the hinges and stuff like that. It was really ridiculous.
I am curious, at what point would you be willing to test the atmosphere? Did they test enough here?
Well, I don't know how good their equipment is. That's the best answer I have. It's like in Star Trek, they just go beep boop. Oh, atmosphere's good.
Yeah, I feel like they don't have that tech.
No, they don't. But it's somewhere in between that and real tech.
They take a little more time than the crew of the Prometheus, so that's cool. Mm-hmm. Or when are you willing to test the alien landscape with your respiratory system?
I think they got to it pretty quick, but in fairness, they only have 51 minutes to do so. So it's one of those things where you just kind of have to chalk it up to the necessities of 1 hour TV. I remember there was a document that was circulated among the writers of Star Trek: The Next Generation. And it was sort of like, how do the automatic doors work? Why do they open sometimes and not at other times when someone's turning around before they leave to make a point? And the answer was, they are powered by dramatic necessity.
Nice.
Although even in the real world, we have our weird world of algorithms, which seem to break science in real time. The most recent one being Saturday night, I get an email from my daughter asking if I have like another guitar capo, which is the thing you stick on a neck to change the key, if you don't know. But I had been getting like Amazon, ads for like 2 weeks about guitar capos. So it was like, it feels like, digital psychic or something.
Maybe she was using your computer to search for capos and wasn't telling you.
I don't think so, but
and then she just gave up and decided to just borrow one of yours.
That could be the case. I don't know.
I'm one of those people. That's the other thing, is that immediately after I said something about testing the atmosphere, not to stay on that forever, but we live in a society where basically when this was made, people were still breathing leaded gasoline and cigarettes and asbestos. So I don't even, how do we test for things that we don't know exist or don't know are actually problems? Like we need, I don't know.
Victor Bergman's trip.
We're terrible.
Yeah, I don't know, guy.
Terrible.
Rightly
we're
so.
Terrible at knowing what to breathe, as historically.
Yeah, I think what was it? Lahore, Pakistan. I think they just had to like tell everyone to stay inside yesterday for reasons like that.
It's like basically I've been to a few like controlled demolitions because it's fun to watch things like that, and after the first one or two of those, I was just like, oh, I gotta start masking up for this and running away from it and staying as far away as I can. This is scary.
I do like the bath towels return. Maybe that's the Italian producers again, because I have a note
Mhm.
like no bath towels. Maybe bring those out for the downpour, not your Alpha uniforms when you
Oh.
go out in the rain. But then
Oh yeah, we cut.
two scenes later, they're running around in bath towels again. So I do like
We cut immediately
that's
to that.
Alpha casual. I think running around in a blue bath towel.
It's just they can't stop, man. They can't stay away from the beach. It's like the holodeck for them.
Moon
The
Beach. That's
beach.
super hip.
Yeah, it's sandy. But apparently, according to some of the IMDb trivia, you don't actually want to go and hang out on the moon. Like it will kill you. You can't breathe that. You can't breathe moon dust.
Okay. Yeah, I know the
So,
Apollo astronauts had like lots of trouble, once they'd get back into the lander with moon dust and stuff. So getting back into the ship was at least as like 3 times as difficult as getting out of the ship.
um, hmm. So
All right.
where do we begin? It's like we could poke holes in the science all day long, but
It's 70s
it's
science.
not
It's
very
fine.
fun.
I think this episode made me think a lot of the long gone Epcot horizons more than
Mm-hmm.
usual. Maybe because they have like all the hexagonal crates and stuff out in the when Paul is trying to build a camp. And I don't know what something about this made me feel like we were seeing more just like that kind of future, stylized 70s future, like even more. Maybe it's because we're seeing it with a blue sky behind. That might have something to do with it.
Probably. I mean, it doesn't look like you're on Earth when you're in space, right?
Yeah.
It
Did, did,
definitely.
did you guys have a chance to do Horizons when it existed?
Yes. I think I did it twice.
Okay.
Same day.
Right. Earl, did you ever make it down to Epcot for that?
I have never been to Epcot.
Ah, okay. You got to go to
Oh
80s
man.
Epcot though. 80s
Yeah,
Epcot
it's
is
too
like
late now.
it's like the Space 1999 theme park. I mean, there's still elements of that, but
Just
that
go
was
to just go to Space Mountain and ride that over and over. You don't need anything else.
It's
I've
just
heard
as
that.
good.
Yeah, I've heard the Guardians of the Galaxy ride is apparently a lot of people say it's the best dark ride ever made by a significant margin. So or best enclosed roller coaster.
that is a different
And
statement there, but
well, it's yeah, okay. Best it, I don't know, it might be the best dark ride. It might just be the best indoor ride ever made, but people stack it up against say it's much better than the Mummy Returns, which is to me the best. That's my favorite ride, period.
yeah. So right before the Eagle crashed, my note is like so much hope and optimism, maybe in that Horizons mold. That's why I was thinking of it. So that's the point. I'm like, oh, this episode is going to get dark and weird, isn't it? Like, there's no way they're going to maintain this optimism level just before the Eagle crashes.
There was one line that really kind of infuriated me, which was Kano says they're starting to have trouble with the Eagles. It's just the beginning of the dread part. And Kano says having the atmosphere is a mixed blessing, and Koenig says, "Not for me, it isn't." That just reminds me of the worst times that I said the most stupid things. It's just
Yeah.
the dumbest thing to say because
Uh,
it's wrong.
in
It's wrong.
the Department of Answering Questions we've had, I think Kano says specifically there are 27 serviceable Eagles. So now we know. Well,
For
26
now.
after this episode.
26. Yep.
Now we're down to 26.
Counting down. Should I start keeping count?
Yeah.
I'm
Yes,
sure somebody else has.
you keep count, not me.
So, Paul and Sandra, do we ship that?
I wrote a few names down.
They did say something about they're not allowed to have those feelings inside Alpha, so that might be just this and never again.
Well, the Force of Life couple seemed to have something going on, but he
I
also
mean, I'm
turned
not
into a
saying
murdering
nobody.
alien infected psychopath.
Guest stars only.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, they were married. I don't think you're not allowed to do that if you're not married on this show, probably. Um, has anyone noticed that as we go along in production order, it feels like the Koenig Russell relationship is just going further and further into the background, and it doesn't seem to be a factor at all anymore?
Yeah, but you moved on too quickly because I wrote down my shipping names for Paul and Sandra. I wrote
Okay, what are
down
they?
Pondra and
Uh,
Sandal. Sandal.
Okay, here's one. Spawn.
That's their child.
Yeah. Second baby born on Alpha.
Okay, moving on to the Landau and Bane thing. I mean, they were kind of cool to start with. I, they seem to push them a little bit more because they were supposed to be married in another time, another place. Um, I guess it's just in this episode in particular, you know, Commander's got a command, and
Do you
also
think that
they're in different places the whole episode.
do you think that another time, another place effectively killed their desire for a relationship because they saw what it led to, which
Been there,
was
done that.
her just dying?
Well, he crashes in an eagle and dies. So
He died first. Do you think that maybe it's the thing where they see that and it's like we're fated never to be together because if we are together we'll die?
I don't think so. I don't
Probably
know.
not. I think they just stopped bothering to write it into the scripts. So they stare at each other a lot.
Or what kind of steam do you see between them at this point?
The scripts were written so out of order. Yeah, some of them much earlier than others, and there seemed to be, so I've done some reading on this since the last show we did. There's there's a wide variance in the quality of the scripts because everyone was getting different notes, and some of these things were, in the story oven for a very long time before they came out. And the production team had different thoughts on whether or not Koenig and Helena were a couple of any kind.
Wow. I tried searching about this and I found 51 fan fictions about them hooking up.
Okay, that doesn't even compare to the number of Kirk Spock ones, of course. But
No, of course.
that
I'm gonna see if
that
I can find ones where it's like John and Alan. Do they get together?
Bono and Computer.
Ooh,
Yep,
yeah,
slash.
we
Up,
got that
Alan
in the
Paul.
show.
Only one Alan Paul story.
Okay.
It's called Both Sides of the Sun.
I
Anyway,
don't know why that makes me giggle, but it did.
it is kind of fun.
I'm just
Um,
looking through your
so
through,
so they're drinking out of jugs when they're in the survival tent. They're drinking out of jugs that are labeled 1 and 2. What do you guys think are in the 1 and 2 jugs?
that's a little confusing. They could be for waste as well.
They're just drinking out of the.
You put your one in this jug, you put your two in this jug.
Oh boy.
I mean, well, with two, you should be able to work it out if it's good. So use jug two if you're using it for water, because that one's very clear that that's going to be water.
It just they both look like they have water in them.
That is one
Um,
thing. Paul is kind of well, he's a poo-poo liar and basically breaking orders before he eats the shrooms and goes nuts. I mean, he tells Sandra a little white lie to make her feel better about drinking the water, which I mean, whatever, that's fine. But then leaves kind of against orders, I guess. Although again, it's not a military operation, so is orders the right word, or I don't know,
I
listening to your
I think
boss?
protocol is the right word, but it seemed like he was trying to figure out something so they could survive. I was unclear on how far away they were from Alpha on the moon, and they said stuff about, well, we might never see another eagle ever again, which seems kind of insane. But
I had the impression they were quite far away, like to the point where walking
yeah,
is not a great idea.
I it had to be that case, but it felt overly dramatic. I guess I'm just thinking in my brain, it just the moon is really small, and it's not. It's not small.
Like they
Like
clearly
Texas,
forgive
right?
Paul for starting his own weird cult after being on a wild drug trip. But should they be a little pissed at his actions before that? I don't know. What do y'all think about that?
Maybe.
Oh,
Oh, it's like a quarter the size of Earth. That's huge.
That's right. That's my point. It's small.
Okay.
It's a lot smaller on Earth, but it's quite
Okay.
big. You could be like, like California, New York distance, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah, but the other thing is, along with atmosphere, these things brought gravity. And so, you hop into a crater, you're going to go splat a lot faster and a lot harder than you would have in normal lunar gravity.
Seemed to really conveniently be Earth gravity and Earth sun and Earth sky. And it was just sort of a thing where it starts raining and they're like, no, it's not. It's great that it's raining. Wait a minute. We might end up in, we get tossed a little bit that we're in a crater. So it might just completely flood Moonbase Alpha, but then that never happened. Nothing ever happens with that ever again.
Isn't Moonbase Alpha airtight though?
But then it would be a real sea
Yeah, that makes
lab.
sense. That makes sense.
It might not be able to deal with the pressure though, because it's on the moon. So pressure is not an issue.
We can't open the windows anymore. No.
Again, with Apollo, the walls of that thing were basically like, tin walls, almost like not thick. So the pressure of water might crush Moonbase Alpha.
But it's also you probably couldn't operate the airlock effectively that way, so you would probably have a really difficult time getting in and out of the base with all your stuff, which all your stuff is in there.
But the aliens do explain that it's like we're giving you exactly what you want. So of course it's water, rain, it's Earth gravity, and it's breathable atmosphere. That's what they want, so that's what they get. Their machines seem relatively omnipotent in doing this, but you can go with the Arthur C. Clarke thing that any sufficiently developed technology looks like magic, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense, but magically they are able to keep any humans from coming to be part of their world on Ariel. Part of the world. Yeah. they don't want that.
Is this a Little Mermaid prequel?
Yes.
Okay.
They just want legs and they can't have them. The end.
Earl, you told us you put out some whack notes and observations on your own on this. Did we hit any, or you have any we didn't hit, I should say?
Oh, there's so many. I mean, I did like panning around, when we had crew members missing, panning around main mission at all these people that we have never seen before and never seen again. Everyone looking so expectant, like, wait, did they just kill a bunch of people off? Do I get lines now?
70% of the regular cast, yeah.
I like the fact that in the future, everything will be made of orange bubble wrap. Pillows, emergency shelters, you name it. Of course, maybe they tore up the pillows to make the emergency shelters. I have no idea.
You wrap those in the hexagonal crates, I guess. I don't know.
You do whatever you can.
So we're kind of getting the Star Trek vibe of like at least one person go. I guess the Star Trek thing is usually all but one person goes crazy, which we've gotten on Space 1999. Here it's just one person going as whack as possible. How does this rate in the pantheon of people completely losing it due to outside alien influences?
It's it's pretty high, although I don't really feel like the aliens maybe intended that exact result. It feels like a side effect, and I'm not really sure. I'm not really
sure. It's just a bonus.
Yeah. And maybe everyone was supposed to eat the mushrooms and they were all supposed to go crazy, and then that would distract them from entering Ariel's orbit. I'm not entirely clear on what the plan was here, but it was very effective, whatever it was.
I guess there's a certain amount where you just throw a wrench into things, like the aliens don't quite know what they're doing, but they know that if they do several things, one of them should work. It just throws everything off kilter. So the moon base can never really figure out how to stay in orbit. I mean, they were going to pass anyway. There was no way they were going to achieve orbit in the first place, it seems.
Do you think this counts as MK Ultra for aliens?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Probably not, but sure.
Mushroom kill Ultra.
So yeah, I'm trying to think who else goes completely whack. There's the Gary Lackwood and Where No Man's Gone before what Marshall, I forgot Mitchell, Gary Mitchell. Of course, he has omnipotent powers, which Paul just has the powers of getting preachy and punchy. So that's not quite, omnipotence, but
I feel like on a long enough timeline, everyone on Star Trek goes insane at some point. If you have a long enough series,
yeah. My favorite obsession is in the Enterprise series where Trip Tucker gets obsessed with renovating the captain's chair. That may be my favorite bit of sci-fi insanity.
I'm never going to get to that series.
They're
I'm
just
never going to
passed through
make
some
it.
kind of. Everyone gets obsessed with whatever they're doing when they pass in this radiation. He was working on the captain's chair, so he gets screamy about fixing it, which is it's like
What
Paul
about
and
Cisco building his clock?
yeah. That was
Oh yeah,
that was
yeah,
almost
that
the
was a
real
great
Cisco.
example.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
him as Benny. I mean, that's not fair because Benny was legitimately under a lot of pressure. But
Benny's the real character and Cisco is the dream, remember?
you're right. You're right. Benny was just going insane in an insane world.
And I do, yeah. Apparently, the acting was like flipping people out on
Yeah,
set too. So
that's why I bring up that example. It's like everybody mostly agrees that's one of the best episodes, but I think that everyone was terrified of Avery Brooks when they made it.
I doubt anyone was terrified by
I
Paul
mean, yeah,
here.
no.
Sorry, I don't have his acting. I mean, that seems more like it was really fun to shoot. I could be
Prentice
wrong, but
Hancock,
yeah.
which is really memorable. This is almost impossible to forget. Prentice Hancock. I can't remember anybody else's name,
I
but I remember
guess
that.
that's an interesting thing. Like you notice Paul's usually there, but Alan Carter is the billing above Paul most of the time. But in this episode, once he gets high, he suddenly gets very affected and starts acting, and suddenly Paul is just like flashing off of the screen. And I guess that's one of the charm. He's been kind of milk toast through this entire series, and now he's hamming it up with a screaming Landau at the end.
and
So
and yeah, and Alan does have a role to play here, which is that Paul tells him about the mushrooms, and Alan's like, well, that sounds great, I'd collect a ton of mushrooms right now. And then he sees him tripping out and then kicks the mushrooms in a ridiculous like drop kick. It's so great, so funny because we've all been that guy, right? Like, yeah, I want to do drugs tonight. Oh, maybe not.
yeah, it's like my high school or yeah, high school homecoming or something where um a friend and I were at the top of a tree because everyone had climbed a tree. And we realized that everyone below us was stoned out of our minds. So we didn't know how to get out of the tree without knocking people out of the tree, which was kind of stressful.
Oh well.
I guess that's kind of like this episode in a way.
Kind of. So what
But
do you guys think about Koenig's absolute rage on how all the Eagles aren't ready? And he starts screaming things like he's told it'll take 3 days to get one. What is it? Carbon plated?
Graphite sprayed.
Graphite spray. Then he says, I needed 2 days. That kind of annoys me every time that ever happens in anything, because that's not how things work. You can't just say I need it in 2 days. Like, you hire somebody to tell you how many days it's going to take. You don't hire them to lie to you and say it's going to be 3 when it could be 2.
Unless you're Scotty and you say it's 3 days, knowing full well it's really going to be one day. That's how you
Okay,
become a
well,
miracle worker.
but he's a genius. I'm not accusing anyone in Moonbase Alpha of not being a genius, but there may be some people who are not geniuses here. Maybe.
Yeah, I did write that Koenig is a screamy bunny. So if you're wondering how I responded, and a pacey one, he's also pacing while he's screaming. That's acting, I guess.
Yeah, that's power walk pacing though, because I mean, he's almost like Boimler. He's
Yeah.
chugging across main mission. It's not like a normal person paces.
Yeah, it's a deliberate punctuation on his anger levels.
Of course, you're kind of cooped up on Moonbase. Maybe you just start taking on like weird affectations like that, because you can't really power walk anywhere except down a corridor, as they said a few episodes ago. So
it it feels it feels almost like he's more it doesn't feel so much like he's concerned with the people who just went missing as he's just concerned with that the mission is going bad and the atmosphere is not good for is not perfect and good for everyone, which they were kind of ridiculously gung-ho about going out into the atmosphere to start with, or else they wouldn't be in this situation. It's like they knew, it's like the aliens knew that people would be stupid about it.
mm-hmm. Well, the aliens had our number, didn't they?
Yeah, they're right.
Actually, I was thinking though, like you were talking about earlier about falling into a crater and just eating poo. Um, they have all been under, what is the moon's gravity? Is it half Earth gravity?
I think it's something like 1/6 of Earth's gravity.
Okay, so they
16.6%, which is
16. Okay.
that's a low. Oh, sorry, 1/6. You're right.
Okay.
Oh, it is. Oh, okay.
I'm like, that doesn't sound like 1/6, but it is.
Okay, I was thinking like 1/2, so 1/6, and they've been no one has been off of moon base for the most part for the past 6 months. Well, okay, they've been on a few other planets, but who knows what gravity they have. I'm just thinking they might
Earth gravity
have some atrophied musculature going on.
I hope we live long enough that we can get some real simulated gravity on some of these sets. I would love to see stuff like that. Even though I guess we will get Tom Cruise in space.
Yeah, as I started saying that, I was kind of starting to think, well, I guess they've been on a lot of planets, so I should retract my point, I guess.
Generally, planets are going to have Earth gravity. Planets in Star Trek have Earth gravity. It's just yeah, unless you the lady who was from the planet who like couldn't walk in Earth gravity, but then she could fly around. Generally it's Earth gravity and everything.
Yeah, everything is Earth gravity.
Very hard. We don't know how gravity works.
I guess they pointed out, so you have to start thinking about it. Is in this episode.
I went into it like most of us have at some point. I went into a big, deep online discussion on is artificial gravity ever going to happen? And it sounds like the most likely way to get artificial gravity is to have just a sphere that rotates while it's flying through space. So and then you basically would have Earth gravity.
So maybe the sphere in Vegas is secretly a spaceship and it'll take off sometime soon.
I hope so. Because you hear that thing lost like $2 billion or something.
Of course it did.
It's like bankrupt.
Of course it did.
Basically, I was hoping to see that thing and it's gonna go bankrupt. You know what's gonna happen? It's just gonna get bought by Tencent, and there'll just be ads for like Temu on the outside of it, and then it'll be half working.
It'll just be that venue U2 used that one time in the end.
Yeah, like so many other venues. Maybe it'll just say U2 played here. I don't know. I want to go to it though. I think it looks cool as hell.
Oh, it does look cool. It's
even though I mean, like probably all of us right here having this conversation, I want to go and just have a sick planetarium show. I don't want to go see U2. I don't want to go see a sporting event. I want like Neil deGrasse Tyson to appear in a huge giant sphere and explain to me things, but
you get blasted through the cosmos and extreme HD. Yeah, that'd be cool effects.
I can only afford to stand outside and watch it be a giant emoji all day.
Or an eye. That's pretty creepy.
I haven't seen the eye.
Oh, yeah, wow. I see one that's just a face that looks like a South Park face.
Look up the eye. Tell me if that creeps you out. That's hard to look up, the sphere eye. That's the kind of, I don't know what Google's going to give you if you do that.
Ooh, I found it.
Okay, he found it.
Crazy. Yeah, it looks scary.
Yeah,
I just want to go and hang out outside of it and stare at it. I don't need anything else out of life.
If they had done Space 1999 today, one, that wouldn't make any sense in 2023, but also you could have like the sphere hover down as a big eye. And I actually kind of got that Ring Around the Moon. So another point retracted.
I know what's gonna I know how LEDs work. A bunch of it's gonna stop working at some point.
It'll have those weird ones that are always on.
Yeah, but I just scrolled to a picture where someone photoshopped the moon from Zelda Majora's Mask onto it. Have you ever
Okay.
played that?
Nope.
It's
But
like the most terrifying thing imaginable.
oh, okay. So it's not like just seeing the real moon because I think they do
It
that.
is it is unbelievably scary. Like it's sort of a thing where you just have to laugh the first time you see it in the game because it's just so ridiculous.
It's
That
going
is
to drop out of orbit and get you. That's what makes it scary because it's getting closer.
Absolutely that too, but it's also a scary face. I just
it.
sent it to your I just sent it to your messenger, Matt, so you
Okay,
can
thank
look at
you.
it. Um,
It's been 2 years since we talked about, but that's the game that is the source for the creepypasta, is it?
no, it's the sequel to that game.
Oh, okay. Well, that was close.
I think. Wait, no. You may be right. Now I'm.
Well, while you're doing that, are there any other salient points before I bring up a question for this episode?
You're right. It
You were
was Majora's
mentioning,
Mask. Sorry. Go ahead, Earl.
yeah, you were mentioning Temu. I had this horrifyingly funny thought watching the blue space buckets come back for their air. It's like, hey, we're back for our air. And I thought, oh no, what if this is the part of the story that's really predicting the future? You can have more air if you download our app and pay for a subscription. You'll receive a new blue space bucket of air each month.
Harry
That
Air.
is. It's possible. Well, we're seeing right now cars that are trying to sell subscriptions to heated seats and things like that, which I think is probably going over terribly right now and may not stick, but it's definitely a possibility.
David
Um,
Copperfield's going to make the moon disappear.
yeah, you can have the moon back if you pay David Copperfield $12 a month for every person on Earth.
Yes, exactly. He's going to run a Dr. Evil scheme.
Oh no.
Or maybe just blast into orbit with the secret moon base on the other side. I mean, I know Alpha's not supposed to be secret, but we don't know of one, so it'd be secret if it's there.
We know what we know what Americans are like. Probably half people won't know it's there.
Oh yeah, even if it is public knowledge, yeah, of course.
Yeah, what
uh
was it? Something like 20% of people don't know who the president is. I mean, now that number is probably higher because people think the president is someone who it isn't.
Don't know or are in denial about it.
It's
Let's
just
not go
don't
there.
know. Like you say the name of the president and they never heard of them level. I I'm baffled. Don't ask me. I don't know.
I mean, I'm a native Georgian, and I don't know the current governor of Georgia, but I also haven't been in Georgia for 13 years, so I feel like I get a excuse.
The current governor of Georgia is a guy who ran his campaign pointing a gun at a teenager who wanted to date his daughter for
Okay.
the campaign ad. So yeah,
Oh,
that's our governor.
yeehaw. Okay. I still don't
It's
know the name.
great.
That's fine. That's great.
Just you know what? Just do it like Pan's Labyrinth and just die not knowing who he is.
I thought I was going to run around with my eyes in my hands. Okay.
I was thinking of the ending of Pan's Labyrinth where the guy's like, "Tell my son," and then she's like, "Your son will never know your name," and she cuts his throat.
How rude.
Sorry, spoilers for a 15-year-old movie.
Well, let's break down this episode. What percentage of it is existential dread? What percentage of it is sci-fi fun? Earl, I'll bop that way. You're first if you have a split on that.
This one almost feels like it's two or three things stitched together. Almost like, the mushroom thing was supposed to be its own episode, and the moon suddenly having an atmosphere granted to it was supposed to be its own episode, and neither one of them would fill out an hour. And so it feels a little bit like a patchwork, so maybe about a 50-50 split on sci-fi fun and existential dread. Of course, we have Barry Gray doing the music because it is season 1. That may tip it over the halfway point on existential dread because, as always, Barry Gray's soundtrack does a lot of the heavy lifting in reminding you these people are in a terrible situation.
That is a good point. I'm thinking of Red Dwarf, where the first 2 seasons of Red Dwarf feel very existential dready to me, and that's mostly because of the very austere opening organ theme. And then season 3 it gets to the bright, happy music, and a lot of the dread just drains out of the show. Even though the show's basically the same, as they've added Crichton at that point, but it's kind of the same humor, but just that table setting really changes the vibe of that show. So the music we're getting in season 1 is a lot of table setting, because my split was actually without, I guess I've been hearing the music a lot doing this as a weekly podcast, so I was like 80% sci-fi fun, someone psychedelically tripping around and screaming at people. That's I don't know, that's somebody's existential dread, but for me it was fun to watch.
I'm not just saying this, but that was the same percentage I came up with. But I specifically thought to myself, it's 80% fun, and the 20% is basically 10% with great atmosphere comes great responsibility, I guess, with great problems. And then 10% is the thing in the back of your head that says this episode is titled The Last Sunset.
Right.
That's a very dready title, isn't it?
Well, you get The Last Sunset at the end, and it looks like a Joe Meek album cover.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's the thing, is that before you know what the show's about, before you get the atmosphere thing, the oxygen, the show is called The Last Sunset. So that alone is 10% of dread.
Okay. And next week you're going to talk about Death's other domain, so we'll see what happens there.
Yeah. Yeah, not the first domain.
I don't think that's next week's episode for a listener. That's just for that. I'm giving you the inside baseball on the recording schedule. Oops.
We were so close.
Death allowed its first domain to expire, and so it had to get the other domain. So now it's death.biz.
Yeah, GoDaddy has the first death domain.
Ask Jeeves what it's like to be dead. There,
can you ask Jeeves anything? Is Jeeves gone?
I don't know. You're the man in the chair. Ask Jeeves if he exists. You just type that into Google. Jeeves, do you exist? I'm asking you.
It says Ask Jeeves, enhanced by Google, and it has a picture of a 3-piece jazz band. It's like bad clip art, and the kick drum says Ask Jeeves on it in a really cheap font. Okay. And at the top of the screen it says Ask Jeeves in a like Arial italic.
That's a nice font.
So what was I supposed to ask? What is it like to die?
Yeah, sure. Like the Beatles song.
It's giving me Google results for what it feels like to die.
No, that sounds too depressing. Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
It's just capitalism has made Google acquire Ask Jeeves. And when you ask Jeeves to something, you're just Googling it.
You're just
like when you mean to go and Google something and you tweet about it instead.
Yeah, I think you betrayed that when you said powered by Google. So
I thought maybe Google would power an actual, search of whatever a question answer thingy.
It makes me sound like a nutto that I use DuckDuckGo as my search engine. The reason being, when I do podcast artwork, it allows me to make a filter for square images, which Google does not have.
DuckDuckGo was a better search engine than Google, and at some point it started getting even worse at returning results that had nothing. Like, you can search for the actual words and quotes and it won't search for the thing. So I've actually had to go back to using Google now.
I remember using Metacrawler back in the day. That was fun.
Yeah, Metacrawler was great. So was what was the one, Dogpile? Was that it, with a bunch of search engines in it?
Okay, so that's Death's other domain, defunct search engines. Got it.
Death. Yeah. The domain of Death is all the stuff we used to use on the internet that worked properly.
Your MySpace page.
Mm-hmm. Death. Dead.
I liked MySpace.
No, me too. You go to it now and a bunch of your pictures are gone.
Yeah, okay. For The Last Sunset, any final thoughts for the episode that you would like to spew into the podcast waves?
I love this episode, and it's dumb, but I love it anyway because it's very fun and silly, and you feel like you learn a little something, even if you're just learning humans are bad, or maybe our reputation is bad.
Bit of a misogynistic episode, I guess. Is that for all people?
Yeah.
Okay.
you get I don't know. I'd say it's not a terribly optimistic episode, but it still has some substance to it.
Or you got a final thought you want to throw on this one?
Well, I've got a couple. I mean, we were talking about, this one getting dark and weird. And I mentioned earlier that my other favorite episode is Earthbound. And I think they have something in common at their core, which is both of them are episodes that build up the crew's hope that there is either a way home or a way to create a new home. The problem being that the format of the show is that it is always going to fall victim to a dramatic rule that I call the Gilligan exemption. The coconut raft will always fail to get you away from the island, and you're going to have to dog paddle back because we have built standing sets and we can't afford to just trash the status quo of the whole series on a dime. So yes, hope is fleeting anytime it's given to the crew in this show. However, kind of a question to keep in the back of your minds as you get closer to the end of season 1, or when you reach the end of season 1, is you were talking earlier about how this would have been a decent place to dispose of Paul Morrow as a character. So whatever happened to him didn't happen off screen between seasons. The more I think about it, the better I like the idea of this being the season ender. Most people will tell you that that is either the last enemy or the testament of Arcadia, depending on which episode aired in which region first. But because of the whole scenario we have going on here, that, the moon's just going to be a new Earth. We don't need to get back to Earth. We're going to have our own little Earth. We're going to have a Wish app Earth right here on our doorstep. That has more of a full circle feeling from the beginning of the series than the episodes that usually get placed at the end of the season.
Yeah, I guess at this point in time, I mean, the cliffhanger was barely a thing, which and when Mark and I were talking about the Prisoner TV series, we had that big talk about finales because we were like, is this the first like set finale in the TV show The Prisoner? This one obviously doesn't have that. They wanted to do season 2, maybe season 3, which didn't happen. But we'll get into it later if season 2 should have happened or not. But
I think that when they were making season 2, they were under the impression that there would be a season 3 from what I've read, but we haven't gotten, obviously, for obvious reasons, haven't gotten too far into that yet.
Yeah. And they made the mistake of hiring Fred Friedberger, who you hire to end your show.
Is that that's the guy who got booed for taking questions about Space 1999 at a convention?
Possibly. He also produced season 3 of the original Star Trek. So
oh boy.
And I think the last season of $6 Million Man was also under him, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
he's familiar with that, but maybe we'll get to it in the $6 Million Man cast. That's a joke. Don't expect that.
Destroyer of shows.
Let's just do a podcast on that guy and everything. Killer of it'll be our new podcast, Killer of Shows.
Well, maybe we'll just focus on Lou Grade, like you said, go for the Muppet Show. I don't know.
Okay, did you know there was a Logan's Run TV series?
Yes. Did I see it? No.
I mean, we could do that.
Same with Planet of the Apes. I definitely known of the show for a very long time, but I've never bothered to watch much of it. I think I have seen a couple episodes of that one though, the Planet of the Apes one.
Well, be thinking about it.
Yeah, it still has Roddy McDowell. That's cool. Earl, you said points. I felt like that was one. Did you have another one?
Oh, that was all both of them. But generally, I really like this episode. It's okay. The space shroom thing, where Marrow is tripping epic balls on the moon. Yes, that's silly. It's like somebody watched Blue Sunshine or Reefer Madness or some other over-the-top histrionic anti-drug film, and that is their whole knowledge of the subject matter. Yeah. That part of the show maybe doesn't come off well, but I give it a pass because the other part of it, comes off a lot better. The whole thing about we have this, we're in this terrible situation. This thing has happened. Do we embrace it? Oh, it turns out it's kind of its own little Trojan horse thing. I kind of wish that they had left the mushroom thing off the table and just made the whole show about, the moon going green for just one fleeting instant. But it turns out that basically they've been thrown a bone. They've been thrown a dog toy to go chase so they don't land on and pollute this other planet.
I might have liked this. I mean, I don't know. I obviously said it was my favorite episode, but I think it might have worked better on a serious level if one character had been tasked with telling everyone, this is weird, you guys. I don't know. I don't like this. Like it lacked anybody being a skeptic, really.
Yeah, they all kind of got boondoggled. Here's my metaphor for Space 99 in general as a show. Mm-hmm. We're gonna make him a person. Comes up to you in a very finely pressed suit, looks perfect, has the personality of Martin Short in the '80s.
There's a final thought that I wanted to give on this episode that I forgot, which is the fight between Paul and Koenig is actually really good and well edited, unlike a lot of fights we've seen in this series. Possibly, and in particular, when Paul just sort of walks up to him and then Koenig just does a little thing where he just flips him with his arm and just completely shrugs him off is super awesome. That is inspired.
The sucker punch rated high on my sucker punch scale at the end.
Yeah, it was that was heavily, I thought it was very inspired brawl there.
I guess as we close things out today, yeah, actually, Earl, this is a real question for you because I guess mission log is getting back to the proper mission, and genealogy is going to be its own thing now. How's that going to work for people that might want to check that out?
We are actually discussing that in real time right now, how that's going to shake out. What will probably happen is that genealogy will move to a different day of the week. Now, it started out in the mission log feed on mission log day, which is Thursday, but it was always intended to be its own thing separate from mission log. So mission log comes back, genealogy is just going to move. It's not a gap filler. It's a new permanent thing on the schedule. So it will move to a different day. It will get its own feed probably at the beginning of the year, because the way we did this sort of out of necessity because of the strike. Putting it in the mission log feed exposed quite a few people to it who might not have listened to it otherwise if we had just said, oh, hey, we've got this new podcast over here. Instead we exposed it to the entire listener base of mission log, and we've gotten some varying responses. We've had some people like, where's the Star Trek? What is this? No matter how many times it has been explained on the show why this is happening, it's you still have people who haven't been listening to a word we say. But it will move to its own day. It will get its own feed separate from mission log, and it's on the schedule. We plan to keep going.
Awesome. Well, it's like, that's why we're glad we don't have listeners on this show, because no one bothers us. Don't ask us for anything. Don't ask us for anything if anyone is listening.
But yeah, I will say, like, at first it's like, do I want to hear that? And with the strike, we did, and it's, hey, this is actually interesting stuff. So again, it's a little bit like a early television graduate course, as I said, if that appeals to you. Was it? I was looking up the the DuPont network. I actually looked up that book, which is really expensive on the Forgotten Network. It's kind of expensive on Amazon, so I haven't read it yet. But
that was like the fourth TV network, right?
Yeah. I didn't know about that. That's insane. There were more choices in 1954 than 1964. I didn't know that.
Oh.
There was UPN before UPN.
Right.
Yeah, it was weird that they had Smallville in 1954.
Oh, right. Okay, sorry.
That wasn't even UPN. That wasn't even UPN.
That's why it didn't work out for my brain. Also, I never watched Smallville, so I had like 3 things going against me there.
It was pretty bad. You don't really need to watch it.
Okay.
I mean, it was whatever.
I mean, Superman only shows up in the last shot, and he looks like crap, is what I've heard.
Okay. Yeah, it's
anyway.
it's like, did you watch the X-Files and think to yourself, there were way too many aliens in this, and I wish that they just didn't have any aliens at all until 10 years in? Then Smallville is for you.
Oh, okay. Mark, tell them where we at.
We at Podcastius on Patreon. Show up for bonus content, to early episodes, deleted scenes that were not deleted. Throw us a few bucks for server costs. You can find us on Facebook, Podcast 1999. You can also find podcasts like Films and Filth, the Citizen Kane of podcasts, going over the top and bottom 100 IMDb film rated IMDb
films
on
rated by
IMDb.
IMDb users.
I was doing so well. I mean, okay. Game show about games. Luke loves Pokemon, going over all the Pokemon. Hyrule Field Report about Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Occult Disney, examining the occult connections in your favorite and least favorite Disney works. Time Enough podcast, going over the Twilight Zone. And
I think you ran out of gas on the time.
Podcast 1999.
Yeah, you already said
the
that.
final podcast.
Now you're just going in circles.
I was just gonna do it.
I'm gonna put a last sunset on your plug.
All right. See you in hell. It's nighttime forever.
See you in hell. That's a good stopping point. I like that.
And I feel like it was really hard to talk about this episode somehow.
Which just,
why was it so hard to talk about it?
Maybe it was too fun. 80% fun. That's too much fun, and you've been focusing on on all the horrible situations. So, but it's good because you were waxing nicely about this one, and then people hear Collision Course a bit after that. So, Earl, spoiler, Mark definitely did not like Collision Course.
I screamed about how bad it was the whole time. I really didn't like it, and I don't even remember why anymore. Oh, it was just the lady told Koenig to do something, and he did it and fought everyone
and took main mission hostage. Yeah,
not on mushrooms.
Not on mushrooms.
I wish it had the mushroom reference in my pocket for that episode.
Okay, let me hit a stop on